Hey folks, this is Bardic Dragoon, and welcome to Let's Play Castlevania Circle the Moon. Released in 2001 for the Game Boy Advance, is actually one of the launch titles for the system, and it's the first in the Game Boy Advance Castlevania trilogy, and it's one of my personal favorites out of the whole Metroidvania kind of games. I'll admit it is a bit of an odd game in the Castlevania series, which makes sense that it was written out of the official timeline, I think. I don't know. It's one of those things, what is in the official timeline and isn't, given some things that have popped up as far as materials and things like that. But if I remember correctly, this and Castlevania Legends are the only games that are actually written out of the timeline, excluding the whole fact that Lords of Shadow is its own separate timeline from the main Castlevania series. I don't know. I'm kind of wondering what they're going to do. I mean, they seem to have finished out the storyline they wanted to tell with Lords of Shadow, and I'm kind of curious if they'll go back to more classic Castlevania games. I don't know. Anyway, we now join in progress the Resurrection of Dracula. And now he's alive again, because, it's Castlevania, that happens. Though, of course, he isn't at his full power here. And then, suddenly, these people come out of nowhere. Morris Baldwin, his son, Hugh Baldwin, and then Nathan Graves. Which you'll notice, not amongst them is a single Belmont. Though, apparently, Morris Baldwin helped out, I guess, one of the Belmonts in fighting Dracula the last time he was sealed away. I don't know. But either way, he uses an exploding bat to make Nathan and Hugh fall into a bottomless pit, or well, near bottomless pit. And this is where our game begins, more or less. We are Nathan Graves. He is Hugh Baldwin. And we both want to save the old man. Hugh Baldwin, his son, though, is kind of an asshole about it. So, whatever. As I was saying, though, this is the second game in the... I'm not really sure if it's really, that whole, when you hear, unofficial trilogy, because I've always heard it referred to as the Game Boy Castlevania trilogy, but there is really, outside of them being Castlevania games... Oh yeah, this game's mechanic, DSS, so I'll get more into it when we actually can use it, because as the description there pointed out, you basically have cards, you collect them in pairs, or you collect them, they're like action and attribute, I think they're called, and you need at least one action card and one attribute card to do anything with them. So we can't do anything with them yet, because we only have... But an action card? No, we have an attribute card. We need an action card. So, yeah. Well, like I said, I'll get more into that when we actually start being able to use it. But yeah, as I was saying, it's, like I said, it's kind of, because it's officially a trilogy of games, and the fact that there are 3 games in the same series released within relatively close to each other chronologically for the same hardware, but the 3 games that have absolutely nothing to do with each other beyond being Castlevania games. And I'd kind of argue if this didn't have Castlevania written on the box and the title logo, they wouldn't even have that really going for them. I mean, they do all have... I mean, I can't really say because, yeah, they are all marked and, stated as being in that kind of Metroidvania style of play. Alright, we finally have I believe that's a action card. And let's take a look. Yes, we now have Mercury and Salamander, which gives us a flaming whip for some reason. I don't know, I'm not complaining. It's pretty powerful. Not that we have anything here that's really powerful enough that we need it right now. But, it's a nice thing to have, just in case. But yeah, as I said, because the kind of... I mean, when you look at it's actually the Metroidvania style of play is something... I won't say it's a bad thing, to me, when I look at it, take the time to actually sit down and look at what it is, the Metroidvania style of gameplay is kind of weird, because, I mean, okay, you've got the whole Metroid influence as the title, or as the genre name might. Is it really a recognized genre of gameplay? I don't know. Because it's like you hear like Metroid clones, and then you also hear Metroidvania games, and I never know where one ends and the other begins. Like when people actually use the word. Like in my personal definition, it kind of comes to the inclusion of the RPG elements, which to me never quite feel like they make sense in the way they've been implemented in some of them. I mean, this one isn't too bad in the way that it implements the RPG elements, but like the other ones, like starting with Symphony of the Night, there's this, you know, kind of more RPG kind of stuff, like attack attributes on weapons and enemies having weaknesses to certain attributes and all the equipment micromanagement and all this stuff that really bring out the more RPG-esque elements of it. Now, get back here. You're going to summon those spikes so I could jump over them and smack you in the face with my flaming whip. Anyway, but they kind of have like the more micromanaging elements of RPGs, and it's not something, I mean, I like RPGs. A lot of why I like them is that kind of micromanaging stuff, because I like math, I like numbers, I'm kind of weird that way, or maybe it's not that weird, I don't know. But yeah, but it kind of feels out of place in the Metroid formula of go through a place, fight things, gain abilities and power-ups that, you know, give you new options and better ways to fight things. It just feels out of place, like, oh, well, you can just level grind or whatever. That, and I also feel like, I mean, because they rarely have the levels up mean anything, like, significant gameplay-wise. I mean, I'd argue Aria of Sorrow and Dawn of Sorrow, and thus, by extension, Order of Ecclesia, kind of do something slightly different from the other ones in the fact that the way that it does the base, like, different weapons have different animations and attack speeds and things like that. And great, now I'm poisoned. And I'm not too worried. Poison is not that bad of a status effect, to be completely honest. At least it doesn't have to be. It can be. But yeah, you just... Ooh, yay, I got clothing. Woohoo! That's almost not worth having. Anyway, but yeah. Or the whole, you know, having stores and buying items and equipment, and they're just things, I mean, when I initially played this, you know, the difficulty of, unless you're playing on, I think it's Thief mode, where you get stupidly high luck, which means that pretty much everything that can drop an item will, and they'll often drop like rare drops and things like that you normally wouldn't see in the course of the game, unless you're using it because your luck stat is just so stupidly high. Finding items in this thing, but then again, to me that feels more like, you know, in vein with the kind of isolation, exploration kind of stuff of the more Metroid-esque half of the Metroidvania style. And then the other half of the Metroidvania being Castlevania. Let's face it, the only Castlevania game that most Metroidvania games resemble, outside of themselves, is Castlevania 2, which a lot of people don't like. And I don't know, I'd never really... Oops, that was the wrong door. I wanted the one above this one. Actually, before I do that, I want to go to another door, which I believe is the one above where I just went. Yeah, well, let's kill this bonehead at least. But yeah. Which, like I said, I mean, it's one, I don't know, part of me feels like it's one of those ones where people give it a... Oh, whoops. It was actually below where I was. Okay, let's try this again. Because I'm running low on health, so we're going to do a quick fill up on health. And then jump over here, jump over here. Because in this room, we have health pickup, or my mistake, magic boost. But yeah, and it just, and like I said, the whole leveling up, it doesn't do anything for, I guess it's the fact that when, at least the way I look at RPGs, I mean, it kind of seems like a formal division, except that I've never heard it discussed ever before myself, so I can't really 100% say if it is a thing or not that people like actually consider and talk about. But to me, RPGs come in two flavors. attribute driven or ability driven. Which pretty much attribute driven is the stats are what make it an RPG. You level up, your stats go up, and your stats are a large determiner of stuff and things. To the point where, you know, min-maxing your stats and doing things like that has a lot more to do with being good at the game, arguably, than more traditional, like, you know, actually being good at the game and understanding the underlying mechanics. So admittedly, that's kind of, you know, stat driven. It's not saying that you aren't doing that. It's just that, you know, it's more about, you know, like, the way you rolled up your character is more important than what you do in the middle of the fight, I guess. I tend to have a preference, not that, like, I won't say no to a game that's attribute driven, though attribute driven games tend to have less appeal to me. It's not like I won't play them. But yeah. But to me, the strangest thing you can do is make an action RPG that's attribute driven. And the way it feels with a lot of the Metroidvania style games is that they feel very attribute driven. They feel very attribute driven. And that just, to me, makes no sense. I mean, you're taking a series of action platformers and combining it with elements from a series of open-ended exploration games known for their stifling, you know, kind of loneliness and managing of resources to a certain extent. Not that there's much to manage other than missiles, but I guess Super Metroid, you've got, well, the Super Metroid, Fusion, actually a lot of them, but like missiles, super bombs, all that. Yeah, I guess it's been long enough, and I don't go to a boss fight without having a save point under my belt first, so I guess we'll stop in here. But yeah, you know, you get those kind of slight resource elements, a lot of kind of exploration and going around and learning to use the tools and abilities that you unlock to fight things, and then you put an attribute-driven RPG on the fusion of those two ideas. It just, to me, feels awkward and not bad. Like I said, the games work. I particularly enjoy Aria of Sorrow and Dawn of Sorrow, but it just feels like they didn't think it through, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, it's enough of me rambling about Metroidvania games, and I think we'll call this a video. Tune in next time where we'll be going into a boss fight and maybe talk about something different, or maybe I'll just ramble more about Metroidvania games, and I don't know. Until next time, though, as always, later, folks.